Hey guys, it's your boy Alec coming to you with a new video. Behind me is my 2020 F-150 regular cab short bed with a Coyote in it and an on-3 twin turbo kit. And as you may be aware, the stock fuel system cannot run E85. E85 makes big power. So in today's video, we installed a custom return style fuel system on this truck so that we can run full E85, turn up the power. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you a full parts list, how I installed it. We are also going to cover how much it cost me to install the kit and buy all the parts, and then also a little bit of before and after comparing what it used to run on pump gas to what it runs now on E85. Let's get right into the video. Fuel system day. Alrighty guys, so in front of me is the parts I have selected for my fuel system on my F-150s. Not only are we going to be doing a fuel system today, we're also going to be installing a long-awaited GT manifold on the truck. We have a plethora of parts in front of us. There are various items from fuel line, fuel filters, we got regulators, we got electrical, fuel rails, a fuel hanger for our 3 450 liter per hour pumps, and of course we have our GT manifold as well. So we got a lot of parts going on here, we got a lot of stuff to do, and it is about time to get to work assembling some of this stuff. So if you're curious about what some of this stuff looks like, we got the GT manifold, we got our set of fuel rails, we got a regulator with a gauge, we got our first fuel filter, shocker, 60 micron, we got our hanger, our 3 pumps, here's some of our regulator parts, pressure gauge, we got our distribution block for our direct injection system, we got some various line, 10AN and 8AN, and also some 8AN for underneath the hood. We got our various fittings, and we have a 10 micron fuel filter as well. So this will be after the 60 micron. And we have some of our stuff for our electrical. So within all this, there's a little bit of assembly required. I need to get these pumps put into this triple hat right here. And we need to do a little bit of assembly, final assembly on the fuel rails, get our crossover line made. It's going to be way easier to make the crossover line on the bench. Thread sealant on the threads of this guy. So we're going to get to working on all this stuff, do everything on the bench that we can, and then we will get to installing these parts on the truck here very soon. You can see the F-150's up on the lift, got the sticky Mickeys on it still. Here is the twin turbo kit if you haven't seen it before. If you haven't checked out any of the videos on taking this thing from an auction truck to a twin turbo, a monster, go check them out. Go check out the playlist. I will have it linked down below. It's pretty easy to find on my channel though. Truck's looking good. Let's get to assembling some of these parts. On the bench, I even cleaned it for you guys. So you can see in this footage right here, there's some assembly required with these 4 triple pump system that we ended up purchasing. Essentially, you have to put a fitting on top of the fuel pump, and then you have to thread that into the hanger. And the supply line is actually built into the hanger itself, so there's not really like a flexible hose or anything like that, which I really do like. It makes it more reliable. So the other nice thing about this fuel hanger is the fact that all the wiring is already done for us, so we just need to plug the fuel pumps into the wiring that's already existing, get them mounted so that they go into the supply area of the pump hanger, and then we need to get our fuel level sender transferred over, but we will do that once we have the tank down and out of the truck. All right guys, so we got our 4 pump assembly all put together. So there are small little collets that hold these pumps in place, so you got to put that stuff, might as well show you, geez, I'm on video here. You got to put those collets in place that are up in here for the pumps. There's a frog in the background apparently. So we got our triple pumps in here. They are wired up. This is for our fuel level sender, so we don't have to do that at this moment. We got our filters on the bottom of our pumps. And so we kind of have this guy somewhat together. We got to do our wiring up at the top, of course. We're going to need to get some connectors and stuff like that for up here, which is fine. So this guy's together. Next up on my assembly list is going to be the intake manifold and getting everything on there. I kind of figured out with the fuel rails, and then also I need to grab my injectors out of this intake that's currently in the truck. So we need to pull that out. And I also plan on porting the intake manifold that's going in the truck, just cleaning it up in a couple spots.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it, how you gonna move for it, what you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything? But what you gonna do for it, how you gonna move for it, what you gonna be?
Alrighty guys, well we got our first official line made for the intake, so I kind of wanted to do as much stuff on the bench as I could. I think I mentioned that already, but it beats the heck out of working in the engine bay or underneath the truck and that kind of thing. So what we got right here, we're using lines and fittings provided by Shocker Fittings. They are working with us for this video, so I want to give them a shout out, of course. They got some really nice high quality line, and you've seen me in the past. I've used whatever I could get my hands on. I've used some cheap Evil Energy stuff. I haven't really necessarily had any problems with it, but I thought that this is probably a good opportunity to upgrade and do something a little bit better that I know is going to last longer. So I reached out. I've been working with Chad at Shocker Fittings. You guys can hit him up on Facebook. I will leave a link to his Facebook page and his website in the description below. I also have a exclusive discount code that you guys can use for the Shocker Fittings website. He's got some really nice stuff on there. So right now, we just completed our crossover line that's going to go from this is going to be the feed rail, and this is going to be the return rail at the end. You can see the regulator back there, which I don't know if you guys have noticed these, but these are the direct they call them the DMR direct mount regulators, so they mount directly to the fuel rail, which is pretty sweet, and they're really small. My favorite part though is that they're adjustable without tools, which is freaking insane. It's always really annoying. I got a couple aeromotive regulators, and you got to get the wrench out and the Allen head and start adjusting stuff, and these ones are not like that. So I'm really excited to use those to be able to adjust fuel pressure with that. And we got an 8AN return on the bottom. So you can see our intake manifold lines are pretty much all complete. We have a little bit of adjustability. This line is nice and tight, and so I'm pretty happy with that. We ended up going underneath instead of up and over, not only because it looks cleaner, but also we are going to have to put a fitting on this, and we're getting a little bit close here with some, I don't want to have any interference. So that's why I went down and under. If I would have gone up and over, it would have been in my way. So that's what we're working with for now. We're going to end up getting the rails off of this thing, get the line off, get the injectors out, and then I'm going to start working on just cleaning this guy up and porting it a little bit so that we can maybe make a couple more horsepowers out of this stock GT manifold. All right, guys, so we got all the fuel pumps in the hangers, and we got the fuel rails all situated. So you can see right here, these are kind of my finished pieces, cleaned, ready to install. Next up, I started working on this manifold because I did tell you I wanted to port it. So we're working on cleaning this guy up. Of course, this is not finished yet, but we need to get a little bit finer finish on this guy and polish it a little bit because that's pretty rough for what we want to do, what we want for flow. You can see I'm in here cleaning up these edges too. So that's a smooth one. It's a little bit hard to see, but here's a factory one. There's like a ridge in there that you can catch with your fingernail. It's actually quite a bit of a ridge, to be honest with you. So we're working on cleaning that up. We'll clean up that transition down in there, and you can see this side. My bits aren't long enough to get all the way. I want to clean up, there's a glue ridge down there. You can see that ridge, especially on the left-hand side, where there's quite a bit of stuff accumulating. So I want to clean that up. So overall, I need to find my deburring bits. These are like 1.5 2 inch long, and I have some 4-inch long ones that'll reach down in there a lot better. This is just some homemade rotary electric motor with a wand on the end of it. My electric motor, after running for an hour, was getting a little bit warm, so I'm letting it take a break, and I'm moving on to, I'm using a MSD solid state relay. This is what Josh at 5-Star Tuning recommended. He likes to use these on his. So we need to get one wire over here for battery power, straight battery power, and then we will have the ability to run 4 things off of this. You can see on the right hand side, the red areas, those are our trigger wires. And so you can see they directly correlate. The one thing though, I was thinking about mounting this over here. I thought that would be pretty clean. We can move some stuff out of the way so we could get our wires in there. But unfortunately, I would like to be able to see the lights on the bottom of this. You can see that where my thumb is, there's some lights in here, and they associate with things working correctly or faults. And so I think I'm gonna mount it down in here like this, and then I should be able to see the lights to some extent. I know there's gonna be wires running in and out of it, but I'm hoping to be able to see the lights, and I still think that this will be fairly clean for running wires to and from. So I wanna get this mounted while we're waiting for our motor to cool so I can finish up on the other side and then start putting a polish on some of the areas that we ground down. So I got a little update for you. I didn't really think of any other better places to put this, so we're gonna mount it down here. You can see I installed some thread certs and got those mounted down. We got a big old cable coming over here. So we got this is a 2-aught. We could run a 4-aught, but this is what I had. So we're gonna get this guy situated. Probably won't be hooking it up just about yet, but it's gonna come out perfectly around in the middle of where our breaker is gonna go. So we're gonna get this guy mounted with our thread certs. Hopefully my holes line up, and we will get moving on to going back to porting that manifold. All right, well, this worked out really good. We got our wire here in the center, mounted down. These guys are tight. This ain't going nowhere even with the nice tug. So we got our power. Of course, I haven't hooked it up to the battery yet because I don't want to energize anything just yet, especially when I was running it through here. But we got it in some nice tubing. It looks nice. It's mounted up and out of the way. I did end up running it like underneath the crash bar in the front, which I don't necessarily love that idea because, like, worst case scenario, I get in an accident and then I have a big power wire on the front of the truck, but it's behind the crash bar, so it should be okay. It looks clean though, I will tell you that. So we had it runs down the fender well, up in front, and then up back over here. So you can see when we get to it, we just organize this guy in here and then connect it up to our battery connection. So pretty happy with that. Now we just need to get wiring from the MSD to the back of the truck with some nice connectors so that we can connect up to this guy right here. We need to also add a ground. You can see right here, regardless of if you do 12-volt activation or ground activation, you do need a ground over in the furthest right, the 5th port, as you would call it. We got our battery hookup, so we need to run a ground, and then these are going to be all of our outputs, and we just need the trigger, which the trigger is going to be the factory fuel pump trigger for the first 2 pumps. So we're going to run 2 pumps constant, and then the third one will be probably off a Hobbs switch or something similar. So you can see what it looks like with the normal off, normal on, if you got a fault or anything like that. So up front here, we will end up running our ground out of that terminal right there, and then we can start running our outputs, which will be pretty nice. So far, I like using this. I've never used one of these before, but it seems like it's pretty decent. And we're gonna have one extra one, so maybe we'll find a reason to run a 4th item out of this at a later date. All right, guys, well, ported manifold version number 1, serial number 1. We cleaned up the edges. There is a big ridge down there that I would like to clean up on the left and the right hand side. So each one of these has that ridge on the sides. I'd like to clean that up just a little bit, but I need my extended burring bits and I cannot find them. So I ordered some more. I've probably spent too much time on this, but it's kind of fun at the same time, so I'm not really seeing it as a huge waste of time. It's a little bit of a holdup though. So it's warm out, it's hot out. I've been having fun doing a little bit of the porting and trying that out. And then we ran the wiring for the breaker for our fuel pump wiring. The last thing that we're gonna have to do with this thing, and the reason I'm porting it, like it's full of plastic now, which, yeah, that kind of sucks. But we have to drill the back for the F-150 map sensor because the GT manifolds don't come with them. So we need to drill this and put plastic shavings in it anyways. So I guess I'll just have to spend a little bit more time cleaning this guy out from doing some of the porting. And I really don't think the porting necessarily does a ton for it, but if I can port it, I can get a little bit of seat time, as you'd say, porting it. I might as well try it out, and then I don't have any regrets about not porting it, and I don't have to pull it again to port it. So it's probably not as good as some of the reputable porters that are on the F-150 forums and stuff. They know the limits, they know how much they can take out, they probably got better tools. But this is gonna work good for me, and at least I can say, hey, I ported it myself by hand, and it's working for me. So I'm gonna catch up with you guys when we get a chance to come out here next. So let's get right into that footage. All right, guys, we're out here for another day in the shop. Pretty excited, get moving on this project. So since I saw you last time, we've made a little bit of progress, just some stuff that's kind of boring to catch on camera. We've been working on finishing up porting the manifold, and also I've been working on the backside here, and I got this ready for our map sensor to go in. I got my drill bit ready. If you guys haven't seen the video on how to drill one of those, I have a video on how to drill your own map sensor into the back of a manifold. It's clean, it works well, and you don't need to buy anything special for doing it. So I referenced my own video to make sure I had the correct drill bit sizes, and I do. So I want to get this thing drilled, then I can get it cleaned up and get all the plastic shavings out of it. But I need my map sensor. My map sensor is in the back of the manifold. So I need to get the manifold off, then I can get this drilled, and then I can get this thrown back on the truck. So we're going to get the truck lowered back down onto the ground, get the manifold off of it, and then we are officially gonna start chasing after this thing's fuel system. So also, since last time I saw you, everything on this part of the bench has been inspected, tightened, and is ready for install. We're doing pretty good here. We are gonna have to make some fittings and hoses and stuff like that, of course, to go from the fuel hat to the rails and the rails back to the fuel hat, but that will be stuff we gotta do once it's installed in the truck. All right, guys, we're officially done with the manifold. I got my map sensor hole drilled back here. Fits super flush. Check out my video on that if you're curious. We got the inside ported. It is mega clean in there. I just spent probably 30 minutes cleaning it out. Brake cleaner, compressed air, shoving towels down in it, using one of these guys. If you don't have one of these grabber guys in your shop, you need one because they work great. So anyways, it is nearly perfectly clean. I can't guarantee it 100%, but I'm just about to throw a tiny, tiny little amount just for insurance of the gasket. Permatex right stuff on the backside here. I do that with all of these just in case they don't seal up perfectly, which this one will, because look how tight this fitment is. Tight. Look at that. Flush, tight, holds itself in place. Probably could just screw it, but we're just gonna put a tiny little bit of sealant on there. And then we're going to lock out our IMRCs, just using some safety wire. Doesn't have to be complicated. This is how I locked out my IMRCs before on the truck manifold. We just got one over here holding the driver's side, one going across holding the passenger side. These two guys are necessary. They were tests. So they didn't end up doing what they were supposed to. So we'll use this one and that one, safety wire those, get our injectors plopped over, put our rails on, and then this guy can go back in the truck. I was working on the manifold, getting everything transferred over and installed and cleaned up and what have you. And I went to go take these two ports out of the side this is for the cover for the Mustang manifold. There's a cover that goes over the top, and there's like the fasteners that go into here. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I can use those to make myself a bracket to hang my regulator off, because as you guys might be aware, This not only has a direct injection system, but a port injection system. That's the Gen 3s have both. And so we have 2 regulators. And I think that's makes sense to most people, but this one is for the direct injection and that one is for the port injection. So there's 2 regulators mounted here. And I need to make a bracket for that because I didn't necessarily want to mount this guy onto the firewall because our direct injection pump is down in there. So it's on this side of the passenger side of the engine. And we could have brought it up and mounted it on the firewall somewhere up there, but I don't really like the way that looks. So what we're going to try and do, we're going to try and run a line from the direct injection pump, which will have the T-block. We're going to try and run it up to the side of our mount here, mount our regulator on our intake. This bracket will change. This is temporary. I'm going to cut it down, make it look nice, as long as this fits. So right now we're just dry fitting. I've drilled a couple holes, mounted the regulator on there. So as you're looking at the engine bay, this is kind of what you'd be seeing. You'd be seeing a regulator on one side, you'd be seeing the regulator in the back, which that one's gonna be kind of hidden. Nice thing about these guys too is we got the boost reference, so we can turn that guy around like that. Same with this guy. If you want to, you can have the boost reference come out the front. But anyways, I'm gonna get this guy plopped into the intake and see how everything fits and see if we can get away with mounting the regulator on the side. Get to making marks with the Sharpie and figuring out where I want to cut out and what I want to keep. But let's plop this Mustang intake up in there and see how it fits with the regulator right there. Alrighty guys, here's the manifold, almost ready to get thrown in the truck. You can see there's that bracket that I made. Not my 1000% proudest work, because you can see we got a little curve in there. The old Sawzall got away from me on the cut there, but it still looks good, not super noticeable. I did talk to Josh at 5-Star. He wants me to set this at 55 PSI with no vacuum reference and then hook up the reference. And then it'll return out of the bottom here and go back to the tank. So that's what we're working with. I'm going to set this manifold in the engine bay right now, not for the final time, but we're going to hook up the line. We're gonna make a line from the direct injection pump to the first regulator up here. So that's my next project. You can see my nice ported manifold in here, all cleaned up, ported, polished. You can see the glue on the sides, nice and clean. And then on the bottom, you can see back in there, nice and clean. Check out these guys. So the porting turned out really good. I'm really happy with it. All my transitions are nice. We also got the IMRCs on the backside locked out. So we got our safety wire here, use the bolts, safety wire here, use the bolt. Works out good. I ran it on the truck manifold for a year and a half, no issues. So why spend $30 to $50 on lockouts when you can spend 32 cents on safety wire for airplanes? All right, we're gonna get this thing thrown in there. That might be an issue. Return line in the front, and they're touching. Back here for day 3 of fuel system. Yesterday was a lot of trial and error, learning, getting things set up, putting things together for the first time, making brackets. That took way longer than I expected. So we're here to try and get this thing like 80 to 90% complete. And I'm going to show you why I say that, because we can't finish this today without some parts. So as you can see here, we got the manifold on. And one problem that I ran into is I made this crossover line, and on the bench it worked perfectly. But now that the manifold's down in the truck, we're running into issues. And you can kind of see what's going on over here. We have some, what I would like to call conflicts of interest. So we have the heater core hose, we have the crossover line for the rail, and we have this PCV connection, which actually goes to the brake booster. All 3 of those shoved in the same area. There's plenty of clearance for them if this line isn't in the way. So unfortunately, I'm gonna need to get a radium 90-degree fitting. So this is a radium 90-degree, and this would technically work if this was 8AN. In this case, we would be able to screw this in about like that. And you can see then we can bring it up and over the manifold and then connect to our other rail over there. So I need to order one of these 8AN, 8AN, and then we can do it that way. And that will get that line out of our 3 areas that are conflicting together and make it so that we can get this crossover line to work. Now, if I really, really wanted this to run today, there might be the possibility of doing this in a different orientation. But actually, when you start thinking about that, no matter what, you're gonna have either a feed or a return fitting up here. And so regardless of where you're feeding, returning, or crossing over, I'm gonna need one of these radium 90-degree fittings right here. It doesn't matter if this is the feed, if this is the return, or if this is the crossover. I can't get a 90-degree fitting onto that without lifting the rails. The rails are lifted up right now. So you'll see as I lift up on the manifold, the rails start coming back together. There is a clearance issue there. This is probably the only thing that's gonna fix it. What's really nice about these, I've used these before. It's a shame that this is too small because I have a ton of these 6AN to 6 ORBs and stuff like that, but I don't have any 8s. So we need to order one of these in 8, and then we can get this all hooked up together. So at this point, you might be wondering, what am I gonna do today? Well, we still have a ton of work ahead of us. A little change of plans with what you're seeing in front of you. You're gonna see we got 2 brackets and we got the regulators both mounted up on the intake. So I got a fitting on the end of this when it was mounted directly to, when the regulator was mounted directly to the rail back here. And I was just like, there's so little space for this stuff that I didn't like it. And I ended up changing it up. So now we have the direct injection regulator over here. And we got the port injection regulator over here. This silver line is our return line back to the tank. This is our feed line from the rails to the port injection regulator. So kind of right now, the fuel will go up from the tank to the direct injection pump. What the direct injection pump doesn't use, it will go on the side of this fitting, this regulator. This regulator will be at 58 PSI. What that regulates, it then returns to the rails. We need to make that crossover, as I mentioned this morning. That crossover will come over here. Then these injectors will get to use what they need. And then this regulator will control it to the 55 PSI. And then we got our return line right here. So that's our little change that we made. These brackets actually turned out really good, and I modified the original one, or the first one, so that it doesn't look like a wiener anymore. So that's cool. So the brackets turned out really good. I'm really happy with the way that they look. I think it's clean. So we're pretty good in that sense. I just haven't installed the manifold yet because we're gonna have to change that fitting and then make a crossover line. Next up, we got the truck up in the air and we're starting to plan out where the fuel filters are gonna go. We're thinking we need to get the tank dropped and get the fuel hat inside of it so that we can officially plan this out. But we're thinking that the fuel filters are gonna go on this bed cross member right here. This is a really nice big wide cross member that should work really good. And then hopefully the fuel line will end somewhere over here, and then we will bring it down above this frame cross member so it's away from the exhaust. And then we're gonna run it up, use this hole right here as a mounting point, and run it up on top of the transmission, because this has to go over to the passenger side of the engine to the direct injection pump. We're gonna run above the transmission to get up there. So we're gonna drop the tank next and get our fuel hat up in here and then see where our lines start coming out, and we're gonna start planning our route for the 2 filters in this area. Here we are with fuel tank out of the F-150. Man, some of those fittings that connect to the top of the tank are kind of a nightmare, especially when you're up inside the truck, but we got it out. We got all kinds of room for activities. Working on removing the stock fuel line already because we don't need that anymore. So that's connected to this guy, and we'll get all that stuff out all the way up to the front of the truck. So we're got a lot of room for activities here. Be nice to be able to put a fuel filter somewhere in there, but we'll see what we can figure out. And then we're gonna get swapping on the triple pump system going in there. Here we are with our parts transferred over to our new fuel pump hanger. So we got our triple pumps down here. We got our fuel level sender with our wires out of the way for the most part. And then we got our gasket and our rollover valve transferred over. This thing's ready to drop in here. We just got to hook up. There's like a siphon hose down in here. And it goes to the front of the tank. I don't exactly understand how this works, but I know I need to hook it up. So we're gonna hook that up as we drop this guy in there, and then we can start putting the tank back together. I'm gonna put some nice connectors on the top here for this wiring so that it's a quick connect and so that I don't have to be above the tank trying to solder wires together or anything like that. So we're gonna get some Deutsch connectors for that. So we're gonna drop this puppy in there and start doing some wiring.
It's just gonna be on my way, I guess.
Come here, baby. All right, locator. Where do I shove this guy through? Maybe right here. What does that look that way?
Sounded pretty good. Everything's looking good.
That does not touch the bottom of the tank. Kind of surprised by it. Be interesting when I run out of fuel now. If it's actually at 0 miles till E or not. Transfer over our... This is day 4 of fuel system. We had some distractions yesterday, having some fun out in the parking lot. And doing a couple things, but we're back on fuel pump fiasco, and today is wiring day. So I've got the pins on the fuel pump down here. So I'm using the Deutsch connectors. My pops is helping me out with using these for the first time. They're really nice connectors. So we got the receptacle receiving end here. I got the pins for the wiring harness on the other end. These are going to be really nice. So we got this up on the tank, and then I'm working on making the wiring harness right now. So I ran this wire here. You can see we got 3 12 gauge wires and 1 blue wire, which is going to be our trigger wire going from the pump in the back up to our solid state relay, which we have mounted just on the other side of this fender liner. So this is about 12 feet long. That's about how much I needed for the regular cab. Put some nice loom on the outside of it. There's plenty of room to add another wire or 2 if we need it. And there's 3 big power wires in here for all 3 pumps. So 3 12 gauge. This is just what I had laying around. This is 14 gauge for the trigger wire. You can see I'm using the McMaster car. This is the wire I went with. It's double shielded on the outside, or double insulated on the outside. The 954-2G. You can only get it in red or black, which I wanted to do 3 different colors, 1 for each pump for easier diagnostics if we need it in the future. But I wasn't able to do that. It's just red or black. So all 3 of them are red. Trigger wire is blue. The grounds are going to be in the back by the tank, so we don't need to worry about running those through the loom and using 36 feet of wire for grounds. That seems completely unnecessary. So I just got 1 roll for the ground. Here is that right there. So we're going to put terminals on the end of this, run it through the truck, connect it into our solid state relay, and then we can start working on putting the tank up in the truck. Making good progress underneath here. I did end up removing the stock fuel line and its associated parts. And then over here, I'm getting my wiring harness dialed in. So we got our 3 connectors for our pumps. I got the grounds wired together. They're loomed. I braided them, and they're inside this nice loom right here. So we got our 3 pumps all grounded together onto 1 lug. This is about 3 feet long, and what I plan to do with that fuel pump ends up being somewhere in here, and so 3 feet will give me enough length to, I'm going to drill a small hole right here on the side of the frame, on the inside of the frame, and I'm going to put a nut cert there so that I can have that as our grounding point. It'll be accessible with the tank up in the truck, so if I need to do any diagnostics, I can get to it. So I need to figure out fuel level sender and which one is the trigger wire for the fuel pumps. One of these is a trigger wire. I'm not sure which one. All right, guys, so here's the factory fuel pump connector. So the only thing we're going to use in this is we're going to use the yellow and the green. Yellow and purple, green and blue over on the left-hand side. This is for our instrument control panel. This is our fuel level sender wires. So we're gonna cut those out and use those to hook up right here. And then up in the truck, we have this module. If you're not familiar with Fords, this is the fuel pump control driver module. There is a blue wire up there, and that blue wire is the trigger from the fuel pump relay. And so we're gonna use that. Now these two wires, you probably could use them, the yellow and the white and brown on the fuel pump connector, but those are pulse width modulated. So that means that the ECM controls how much voltage goes to those. And so if you want to get full voltage, you need the blue wire up on the fuel pump control module. So we're going to steal the blue wire as our trigger. And I kind of knew about this ahead of time. That's why my wire inside my wiring harness for the trigger is blue, because I kind of remember things every once in a while. Every once in a while I come up with some good stuff. So we got our blue wire there. So we're going to pull that fuel pump control module connector down. We're going to pull some wire back, and we will use that as our trigger. All right, here's our connector for our fuel pump control module, located up on top of the frame. To get it off, you press down on this guy right here. Kind of hard to see it up in there, but here's our blue wire. I stripped some of the wiring back, and so what we're going to do now is we're going to give this guy an old snipperooski, and then we're going to tee into that. Here we are officially. The tank is just about to go back in the truck. We got the evap line able to be hooked up. We got space for the other evap line, tank purge. We got our connectors down here with our fuel tank level sender. And up in the truck here, we got my custom wiring harness. We got our trigger wire tied into the fuel pump control module. We cut out these guys for our level sender out of this plug. So this plug is null and void now. We don't need that guy anymore. We don't need that where we're going. This guy's for the evap. This guy's for the evap. And then you can see over here, I did drill this ground. Had to clean up the fluid film on the frame, but we drilled this ground. That's nice and tight. Put a thread cert behind that. And then we got a nice little M6 by 1.0 bolt. About time to put some tank up in here. Guys, we got the tank up in here. She is all tightened down. We're looking at how we're running our lines. So we got our feed line. I think I mentioned already, but the filters are gonna go up on that bed cross member. And so we need to get, I ordered some more fittings. Once we get our fittings in, then we will get the filters mounted and start sending fuel up to the front of the truck. We got our return line on top of the tank, because you basically gotta drop the tank to get the fittings off the top of it, because there's no room to put wrenches up in there. So we got, those guys are tight. We'll route this up to the engine bay, and then we'll have to make one fitting on the end of it for the intake manifold. The light is at the end of the tunnel. It might be a small light, but we can see it somehow, so that's good. Just need to mount filters and a couple more lines, mount the intake. There's a good day of work left. 5 days to make a fuel system. But that's the fun of saving yourself a couple grand, not buying a kit. So you can have it your way. It's like Burger King. Over here, we got my wiring. Also needs to be solidified, I guess you would say. We're gonna zip tie that up, route it up behind the cab mount, behind the crash bar, up through the wheel well. That'll get us up to our solid state relay. So we got quite a bit of work done. Had some distractions today as usual, and we'll just keep plugging away at it. I'll update you when we're here. New day. We got our order from Summit. Got a mount for this Red Horse fuel filter, and then I also got our radium 90-degree fitting that we're going to need to use on this one fuel rail that was hitting on the coolant port that was coming out. We got to make our crossover line. So now that we have our mount and we have extra fittings from Shocker, because we ran out of fittings for our 10AN, we can finally put our fuel filters on the truck, and then we can start getting close to getting this thing fired up. We got to do a little bit of wiring, land it in our solid state relay, put our intake manifold on. So let's just see how much progress we can make in the next couple hours. So I'm playing with fittings here for my crossover. I got a 90 on the driver's side, straight here. So our hose is gonna do something like this, or I can play with a 45, and that's probably gonna get me a lot closer to where I want to be. So I think we'll use a 45 as our crossover line. Definitely not my first choice when it comes to routing, but still looks pretty good, still looks pretty clean. I did try and route this down underneath through here, and it doesn't stand off enough to clear the manifold. So it's kind of funny, we had way too much standoff, and now we don't have enough to kind of find that happy medium, the old Goldilocks, as they might say. But this looks okay. It fits the bill, it fills the purpose, and it doesn't stick up too much. So I need to fill this hole right here with epoxy because we don't need that guy. We will start making lines underneath the truck. Okay, here we are, we got our epoxy in our plug there and on the port in the back. Don't plan on using those. I've tried to use them for boost reference before and they're awful. So we're not going to use those. We can use this one for our evap system, this one for our brake booster, and this one is going to get a cap as well. Alrighty, so I'm moving on next. We got our Red Horse filter here. We got our Shocker filter here. So I need to make a line that goes between these two. I want to make it as short as physically possible because we don't have a ton of room on that cross member underneath the bed. So basically I'm going to put these two fittings together, or well, there's only one fitting here, but I'm going to put another fitting on this side, put an inch of hose between the two, and put the fittings on, and then those two will be mated together enough that we know the length from here to here for up underneath the bed. I did just learn that a double female is a fitting that you can buy, but it costs about as much as what I just did right here, and I don't have one. I'm trying to get this thing done. So here we are, got our straight little 2-inch piece of 10AN in the middle, and then we got a double female. All right, so I'm measuring right about 22.5 inches from where our hose is going to come out going into the first filter to the 90 on the end of the second one. Measuring right about 24 inches of clearance on this bed. So we should have just enough room to get this done. All right, I got up underneath this thing and drilled in our thread certs to mount our filters. So the next thing underneath the truck is putting a end on this hose, an AN, straight AN fitting to go into our first filter, but I think I want to do that after the filters are made so that I can figure out, this is going to be a little bit hard to make up in the truck, and I kind of want to make sure that it fits with the filters in place. So before I went for my parts run, I went and wired up our solid state relay, so you can see our 3 main power wires from each pump coming up here. Of course, you will remember that those are grounded down on the frame. This guy right here, I have not hooked up yet, but it's gonna go right here. This is a reference ground, just so that the solid state relay can detect a fault. And then you can see here, here's our blue wire that we connected to the relay for the fuel pump, which is also a blue wire. And then I split it off. I used a solder shrink connector and put 3 wires into one, soldered right there, and those are our 3 triggers for our 3 pumps. So right now we're gonna have all 3 pumps on. I'm thinking about trying, this truck should be able to run with 2 considering it only had 1 before. So I think we might put 2 continuous and 1 on a Hobb switch. I need to talk to my tuner about that though and make sure that he would be cool with that. So aside from that, it's time to go for a parts run, and I will check back with you once we get back. Hey guys, well, we went to go prime the system, check for leaks, didn't even plan to start it, and that was like 4 seconds of one of the filter connections being loose. So
You were in the engine bay saying, tight, yeah, this is tight, this is tight. Forgot the filters, bro.
yeah, we totally forgot to get underneath the truck. So now we got a giant mess.
Already evaporating.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting high.
The worst part is the truck primes and it doesn't stop priming until it sees fuel pressure. And because it never saw fuel pressure, it just kept going, never stopped. Well, we know the pumps work. Damn, that regulator is loud.
65 on the right and like 70 on the left.
Do you see any leaks right now?
Do a quick under check. Appears to be clean.
At this pressure, it'd be very obvious.
So the only thing that I'm trying to figure out is why it hasn't stopped. Oh, that's nice. Regulators that adjust with the by hand. That's 58. Josh wanted it at 55. Right about there. This one's 58. Something's funky with this one. This one don't want to adjust. Oh, there it goes. This one's not adjusting for some reason. It goes up, but it won't come down past 60. Like it's all the way loose and it won't come down past 60. It might when there's a load on it. We were going for the first start, so we ran the pumps on with the truck off, just the pumps on, checking for leaks, and we did have some huge leaks at the beginning, and we got those tightened up, so we ran it on the pumps without the truck running for a little bit longer, and we got no leaks. So now we flash tuning it, and we're gonna go for our first start. We're gonna look for leaks, and then also we're gonna check and see what the pressure is at. We're having a little problem with the regulator on the passenger side rail because it's adjusted all the way tight and it still was showing like 60 PSI. So now if that decides to come back and work correctly, then it's probably gonna be at like 20 PSI. So we're not exactly sure what's going on there, but we're gonna throw the key and see what happens. Bailey's gonna be watching fuel pressure. Dale's up on the camera, and we'll see how it goes.
Everybody say welcome back to Bailey. Yes, sir. What's that left side at? 65, 70?
Yeah, 65.
Right side?
About 55.
55, okay.
It's about 10 PSI difference. We're going to try and pull one of the pumps off, so it's only running 2, and see if that's going to pump for that regulator.
Hey guys, we're here with the Coyote. After it's ran a little bit, we had 2 leaks back by the filters. We got those sorted out, just had to move the AN lines around, tighten them again. And then just have this weird issue with one of the regulators. The only concern that I have is like 60 PSI is okay if that's all, it seems like that's all it can regulate right now. And which 60 PSI is not necessarily like wrong or bad, but my only concern is like, why can't it regulate below that? Is it because it's overburdened with too much fuel and it can't get rid of it? Or is it because it's a junk regulator and it's not working properly? So I don't really know on that. The thing is, like, as long as it works properly and maintains 60 PSI, like going down the road and operating, it doesn't really have to be regulated much lower than that. It's supposed to be 58, 60, it's with 5%, so it's not that big a deal. But we have one final thing to do. Some supplies tomorrow before I come to the shop, but we need to, this guy's plugged, it's gonna stay plugged, but we need to hook up our brake booster. I was getting a check engine light on the dash for not having the brake booster hooked up. So we need to get that hooked up, and then we can go take this thing for a drive and see how she does. So the F-150 is out in the sun. She's driving for the first time. We're still not exactly sure about that regulator, so that's why we have that gauge inside the truck, because we're going to watch it while we are driving down the road. I can watch the low side fuel pressure on my end gauge up here, but there's no gauge for the high side. So we're going to go run it down the road, and if everything goes well, we're going to fill it up with pure E85, and I'm pretty excited. Alright guys, we had our first drive. The direct injection pump is getting 60 under pretty much all driving conditions, and then I got into it about 5-6 pounds of boost and it went up 6 pounds. So it did exactly what it was supposed to do. My fuel rail pressure sensor I can see on the end gauge, and that one went up the 5 pounds that it was supposed to as well. It sits right around 55 to like, it shoots up to 59 and immediately corrects like as it's idling, so which is normal. So I'm really happy with it so far. We're gonna put full E85 in this truck for the first time, not ever, but since it was NA was the last time that I ran full E in this thing. So I'm pretty excited about that. Break out the card and go pay for some $1.99 gasoline. Here, everything went pretty good. Don't have many complaints or really any complaints. So the way that the truck is set up right now is Josh set the tune up so that it's a flex fuel tune. So like if I were to daily drive the truck and I was taking it out of town, then I can just put pump gas in it and then we can have a blend of ethanol and the truck reads it. I'm gonna try it out. I wanna give it a shot. My only concern is that this truck seems to have a hard time interpreting ethanol. And if you guys don't understand how these trucks interpret ethanol because they don't have an ethanol sensor, if you don't understand that, I can explain it in another video another time, but it has a hard time interpreting correct ethanol. Like I used to put E30 in it and it would maybe read 20%, and I have to like watch the end gauge and like make the truck learn it's ethanol because it doesn't seem like it wants to do it naturally. So not sure about that. We might just end up asking Josh for a tune that's locked at like 75% ethanol, which is usually what our ethanol is around here because I measure it. So with that being said, we'll try it out. We'll see how it adapts. And then once it adapts, you guys are coming along for some draggy pulls because of course we didn't do this to make it slower. So I'm excited to see how much faster it is. All right guys, so this is somewhat of our finished product. There's some minor changes I want to make to like this line right here, but it's good for now. The truck runs, so you can kind of see everything, how everything's looking in here, our brackets, and also we got our boost reference lines hooked up. Everything's nice and clean that way, and I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. Everything looks good, sounds good. We got no leaks, and be ready to put some miles on her. So at this point in the video, I just want to show you a couple photos from the project and also discuss that coming up here in the next couple screenshots, I have all of the part numbers that I ordered to complete this project. I bought most of my parts through 5-Star, and then the lines and fittings I bought through Shocker Fittings, which I told you guys that I do have a discount available for you guys viewing the videos. So you'll see here everything from wiring to regulators was bought through 5-Star. Right here you go. These are the regulators, solid state relay, the triple pumps. You can see how the triple pumps are set up. You can see fuel rails in a T-block. You can see here is my breakdown of everything that I bought from 5-Star. Here are the screenshots of everything that I bought from Chad at Shocker Fitting. So we got the lines, the filters, the hose ends, and everything like that. I do just want to mention that the list coming up here is all inclusive for everything that I had to buy. Some of those screenshots I did end up having to get with Chad and call him and say that I needed a couple extra fittings because I was an idiot when I laid it out on paper. And then you can see my total for the entire fuel system, including what I bought from Chad, was $2,870. And I do just want to throw this out there. This is an option for you. You could go the Evil Energy Amazon route. I'm not necessarily encouraging it, but I'm saying if you're balling on a budget and you want to do this for $300 cheaper, you could buy some Chinese lines and fittings from Amazon. Your fuel system is one of the places I would highly recommend spending some money so that you don't blow up your engine because things go lean. All in all, you could build this entire kit from pumps to lines to filters and all the regulation for $2,500, which is pretty insane, considering most tuners and most performance shops want $3,500 to $5,000 for a fuel system. And so if you think about everything that I got into this, I think I did a pretty good job on it. So if you're curious on building your own, you can definitely reference this video. Alrighty guys, so we're wrapping up the video here and we're getting into the results section of this video. So I have a little bit of draggy pull video for you that I will put up, but this truck is getting to the point where I'm gonna start posting 1/8 mile stuff only because it's getting really fast. And so what I'm going to show you that I have for draggy content was filmed in Mexico on a closed course. So in comparison, the fastest I've ever gotten this truck to run on pump gas was an 11.3. I'm sport mode, manual mode, advanced track, 4 high. 0 to 60 of 3.41 seconds. That's good air, 93 pump gas on the drag radials. Now, as you can see here, the truck ran a 0 to 60 in 2.88 seconds. So we've shaved off 0.6 of a second from even when it had the stall in it on the drag radials to now. One fuel change, change of manifold, 0.6 of a second in the 0 to 60 is insane. Next up, over the whole quarter mile, we ended up shaving 0.7 of a second, going from an 11.3 to a 10.6. You guys can see the screenshot of me running it out to a 10.6 in Mexico on a closed course. And I don't know what else to say, truthfully. It did amazing, huge gains. Our boost level went from 11.5 pounds on this manifold because it has less restriction. We're making 8.5 pounds of boost on the exact same spring as what made 11.5 pounds. Boost is a measurement of restriction. Goes to show me I have a lot less restriction in the intake manifold and through this turbo system now that I'm running a ported GT manifold. So all in all, our boost level went down. We cut 0.7 of a second off the quarter mile, and our 0 to 60 is 0.6 of a second faster. That's insane. So as much as this mod is expensive, I had to buy a lot of high quality parts and I wanted to do it right. Putting a fuel system on a Coyote is not cheap. It's not like an LS, costs you 1,500 bucks. You're all set, good to go. These things are a little bit money hungry when it comes to fuel systems, but it is all worth it for those gains. In the future, we're gonna take this thing to a track so we can really run it out, not worried about any chupacabras running out in front of us on the streets of Mexico and things like that. And then we can get some really good times. We'll turn up the boost a little bit with a boost controller and we'll have some more fun with it. So until I see you guys in the next video, make sure you hit that like button so that I can help pay for this fuel system. You see I got a hole in my freaking shoe. Yeah. I can't even afford new shoes because I bought a Coyote fuel system. So make sure you leave a like, throw a comment down below what you think about the fuel system. Until I see you on the next one. Peace.